did you know that for the past 4 years, the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, or CFBC, has hosted a poetry circle in honor of this day? Well, frankly, I didn't know, but I know now. So, CFBC is back again with its 5th annual poetry circle. Sonita Daniel, Director of Library Services, is here to give us the inside scoop on this event. You know how we love inside scoops. So, pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Daniel. Thank you for joining us on GMSKN.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Our pleasure.
Today is, in fact, World Poetry Day. In 1999, the UNESCO, at its general meeting, it set aside March 21st to celebrate poetry, to try to revive this oral tradition, this dying art form. And at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, we started 5 years ago to celebrate this International Day with a poetry evening.
The theme for this year, a very good initiative, by the way, as you rightly said, it is a dying art. I think we noticed that. The theme for this year is always be a poet, even in prose. Explain that to us. What does that mean to you?
Well, my understanding is that, you know, our poetry and prose, they are various forms of writing. And I think that there are various forms of writing, and they are used to communicate ideas. And I think that Charles Baudelaire, who is the author of that quotation, I think he is trying to encourage writers, whether you're writing in prose or in poetry, that you can be creative and use your imagination. Don't just stick to the technicalities of writing, but also to let your writing be your voice, so you can be creative and imaginative in your use of words. And so I think that's, you know, to me, prose can be straightforward. We know poetry, poets tend to deliver with with powerful expressions and rhythm and so forth, whereas prose, in my opinion, is more straightforward. But I think all forms of writing, we can use creativity and our imagination in the writing process.
So why is it important for the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College to observe this particular day, since you mentioned before that poetry is a dying art?
Well, we at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, the only indigenous tertiary level institution in the country, we recognize that it's a dying art form. We also do recognize the importance of poetry in the lives of our residents. And so we have decided to help to promote this dying art form. We are trying our best to try to help it to flower and to endure, because we do recognize that it's very important for poets, for people to be able to express themselves, for them to be able to, their voices on different topics in the society. And so we provide that important forum, and we say it's a national linguistic and cultural event. We'll be having poets from across the Federation, and so we feel that as the only indigenous tertiary level institution that's part of our ambit, we should try to promote literature, promote poetry, and other art forms.
Well, that's great, because when I hear you say that you're going to have poets from across the Federation, it's a great way to identify who they actually are. That's one thing, because I don't think that, from my experience, I know maybe one or two. But when you're doing that, you're also planting the seed, I would suspect, to say, well, poetry is something that a lot of people should get into, can get into, and here's why. So it might be that fire that you start, that spark that you start. Personal question here. Have you written any poetry?
Well, I tried to dabble in one poetry, like last year. My minister of my church, Reverend Bunny Byron, she was retiring, and I tried to put some words together. But I am one of those who believe in poetry must rhyme, but you know, poetry, you know, the words don't have to rhyme.
Yeah.
So your words didn't rhyme. Is that the way is that what you're
I
saying? now?
tried to make them right.
Oh, you tried to make them rhyme. How
Yes.
successful were you on a scale of 1 to 10?
I think 6.
That's close enough. You get a passing grade.
So do you have a favorite poet?
My favorite poet is,
You got so many, huh?
but I like to hear Louise Bennett,
Okay.
you know, and I like to hear, you know, her monologues, her performances, and when she spoke to what are the social issues in the society, you know, she spoke. So
That sounds
I
interesting.
like, you know, so the economic situation in Jamaica, she was very colorful in her expressions, and she used a lot of the Jamaican,
Lingo.
you know, local lingo expressions. I really enjoy them, and you know, so
You're
I
making me want to go look for that.
Oh, definitely
Yes.
so. Definitely so. I'm going to do that after today, so thank you for introducing that. All right, so let's talk specifically about some of the poets that will be participating in this year's event, the 5th Annual Poetry Cycle. Do you have their names already?
The names, yes, we have 22 poets who will be performing this evening, and they include notable poets from the Federation, like Crichton Pension, Lachlan Tatum, we have James Galloway, we have some of our CFBC alumni, Carla Astafan, James Galloway is also a CFBC alumni. We have Tatum, Lachlan Tatum, he's a published poet, and also Hansel Manners from Nevis.
Okay.
We have some of our student poets like Desara Andrews. She recited at the Buckley's commemoration event the other day, and so she is one, and also Rochelle Dabio. They are both students at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College. We have Dr. Huon James, and who is a counselor and he writes poetry. We have Lesroy Williams. He also is an adjunct at the CFBC, so they would be performing. Michelina, Charles Hazel, there are also some of the poets who will be performing. We have Numero Unoma who is Nigerian, resident in Nevis. We have a good lineup.
You really
we have
do.
the best.
You really do. It sounds like it.
I think I'll dare say it's a national event in poetry.
Definitely sounds like it.
Indeed. So is there anything that's different with this year from the previous years, the other 4 years that would have come by?
Yes, this year we are fusing it with music. So we are, you know, so both poetry and music will converge, and this evening we will have Linnell Bingy Paris out of Nevis on the drums. We have Alex Condell on the saxophone, and Mandy Byron, a CFBC alumnus, who will perform on the steel pan. So both music and poetry will converge this evening at the CFBC.
All right, so we're almost out of time, Mrs. Daniel, but again, I want you to remind us of the time of the event. We know it's at the CFBC, but what time does it begin?
It begins at 5 p.m. sharp.
I like that, sure.
All right, admission is free, no admission?
No admission. And we'll have an exhibition of books published by local poets will be on display.